Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Subcommittee Ways and Means. Our agenda is about the budgetary items. At this time, I would like to get a roll call of the members.
Mr. Michael Ferranti,
Here.
Ms. Carol Ty,
Here.
Mr. Fred Zanella.
All right. At this time, I'd like to also mention other people that are participating in the meeting. Right now, Dr. Diane Kelly, Dr. Danielle McCober, Dr. Lorenzo Garcia. Also members on the school committee are Stacy Rizzo, Susan Gravelisi, Andy D'Ambrosio. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to the superintendent. And basically, we're going to talk about the two grants we got, the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 grants.
Thank you, Mr. Ferranti. And just for the matter of the roll call, Mr. Sinella has joined us and is now present in the Zoom room.
Okay, good.
So I want to share my screen here and share some information about how we intend to spend some of our grant funding that we received through the federal stimulus packages and through state funding. The ESSER 2 grant we have talked about before, and the ESSER 3 grant we started to talk about. That's also known as the American Recovery Grant. And we're going to take that in a little bit more detail at this point. So much of what I'm going to share with you are ideas that we've already talked to the committee about. But here is just a bit more detail from our earlier budget meetings. So let me just see here. So we'll, oh boy. So we'll start with the ESSER 2 grant. The available balance we had for that was $6,499,758. And we have mapped out a budget plan that spends almost all of that grant. We did receive new guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that said that we should do our best to spend down the ESSER 2 grant before we start spending the ESSER 3 grant. And part of their rationale for that is that the ESSER 2 grant needs to be used either in FY22 or FY23, whereas the ESSER 3 grant can be carried through FY24. And so for that reason, you'll see that most of these expenditures have been targeted for funding through ESSER 2. And if I just look at the top piece here, what I'm about to lay out spends almost all of that grant except for the $59,943 that we want to leave as a flex point in that grant in case a line item is a little bit higher than we anticipated. The grant does allow us to shift among line items in the grant to some degree, but not hugely, which is why we want to leave that little bit of flexibility there. So the positions and the non-salary items that we put into the ESSER 2 grant are all items that we've talked about previously. The Human Resources Officer position, the Communications Coordinator. For support staff, we have the 30 paraprofessional positions that we've spoken about extensively. Moving our parent liaisons from part-time to full-time. 2 tradesperson positions. 3 security translator positions, 5 more bus monitors, the health aide positions, and I see there's a number problem here that it didn't carry over right, so I'll have to adjust that. And the business office, the additional business office clerk position. For teachers, under this grant funding, we've included the additional health and wellness teacher at the elementary level, 3 adaptive PE teaching positions for our district-wide special needs program, 2 OT-PT speech positions, 3 reading interventionists, 1 school nurse, 3 BCBA behavioral analyst staff members, and 3 school psychologists. We're also targeting some funding for our summer programs, including 4 nurses and 7 health aides. And the health aides will be specifically brought on to conduct our surveillance pool testing program throughout the summer for COVID testing. We've also put funding there for supplies and materials for the schools for their summer programming. With these staff positions that I spoke about previously, we are budgeting $620,000 for additional benefit costs. We've allocated $130,000 for furniture for libraries and cafeterias, and that's at the Beachmont and the Garfield schools. Various upgrades to univents and exhaust fans across the district, and Carl has estimated that at $1.3 million. And the replacement of pump controls at Revere High School. We've included a number of line items for professional development so that we can bring in folks to help build our capacity as a staff in the areas that align with our district improvement plan. And we've budgeted for new textbooks at the elementary level in both math and literacy. And a new science pilot for the middle school, which has a minimal cost associated with it because it's a pilot. There are various line items identified for technology. Many of them are infrastructure upgrades, such as this line 56 that you see here, which is switch hardware and fiber connections and network storage arrays. Others are for our classroom technology, such as in line 58, you see the smart touch displays. As we continue to migrate from smart boards to smart touch displays, we wanted to continue that program using some of this funding. We've also got a line item for 1,000 new Chromebooks as we continue our one-to-one program. Many of our, Danielle, can you take this for me? Many of our current Chromebooks are at end of life, and so Jonathan is working on a program to refresh those machines every so many years, and so this is part of that initiative. Should I pause there or
Yeah,
roll on?
okay. What I'll do right now is I want to give members of the committee any questions they have for the Sf3 funding. Carol, any questions do you have?
No, there are no questions, any that I had before. Dr. Kelly has answered, so that I'm good with it.
Okay. Fred, any questions? Can you hear me?
I have a feeling he can't hear us.
Fred?
Fred's having trouble with his audio.
Okay. All right. Well, until we get that corrected, Stacy, any questions you have?
No, thank you.
Susan?
No, I don't have any, thank you.
Okay. Anthony?
No questions.
Okay. Okay, I just have a couple of quick ones, Dr. Kelly. The estimated benefit cost, the $600,000, is that the health insurance?
Yes.
Okay. And my other question is that the 1,000 Chromebooks less the reimbursement, I know it's 100,000. Do we know what the reimbursement is?
Yes, we anticipate we'll have an 80% reimbursement from E-rate. They recently changed the E-rate program to allow us to purchase Chromebooks. Those used to be excluded items under E-rate. So we've estimated this actually at about 75% reimbursement, just in case
Okay.
there's a little bit of difference there in how they administer the new program compared to the old program.
And my last question, just going forward to next year, that the positions that we're paying this year, will we just have to put them into the budget for next year with the human resource, communications, support staff, teachers? Will they be in the budget next year, or will we be able to put them through the other grant, Sf3?
They will be, so, and that's actually a good point. So some of these positions, might actually get flexed into our regular budget even sooner.
Right.
And so Our goal will be for all of these positions that are salaried positions to move them into the regular budget. And that's what will happen as our Student Opportunity Act funding increases.
Okay.
But we would have the opportunity, if we needed to put them into the ESSER3 grant for next year if we wanted to. And our primary goal will be to continue to make sure we're using this grant funding and not leaving that on the table, making sure that we're expending all of that before we reach the deadline of spending for these grants. So it might be that we leave some positions in, put some positions in ESSER3 next year before we put them into our regular budget, if we have that room to spend that money that way.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, all of these positions will need to come into our own budget, and we do feel comfortable with the anticipated increase in SOA for each of the next 6 years, that we'll comfortably be able to do that.
And the balance of the 59,000, if you don't spend it this year, you can't spend it next year.
That's right, yep.
Okay. Do we have Fred on the line? All right, at this point then, I think we should, if there's no other questions, just go to the ESSER3 funding.
Okay. So the ESSER3, we've done a lot less spending on for this current school year, because we did, as Desi guided us, want to spend down ESSER2 first, but still be fiscally responsible. So as you know, our ESSER3, or American Recovery Act funding, was about $19.5 million. This calls for spending about 6.5 of that and leaving almost 13 million to be spent over next fiscal year, FY23, and the following FY24. And the biggest chunk of this funding is the $6 million for the McKinley School renovation, which we're working on in collaboration with the City of Riviera and the Mayor's office. And then there are a few other items that fall under either technology. No, actually, I think these are all facilities updates. They're all facilities upgrades. And we talked about them already. So this is the same pickup truck that we talked about a couple of months ago, that one of the trucks is extremely old and rotting out in the undercarriage and needs to be replaced. We talked about the scissor lift before and how much money we spend to rent those when we need them, that it's actually going to serve us better to have our own. I think that we actually talked about all of these things. So that's fairly straightforward.
Okay. Carol, do you have any questions about them?
Well, just an observation to what Dr. Kelly just said. We've been talking about a dumb waiter for the Lincoln for years and years and years. It goes back to when I was teaching, and desperately needed. And I'm so happy that will make the staff there at the Lincoln much more. It'll be much easier for them, and make them much more successful in what they have to do. They've been performing miracles all the time without that too. I do want to know about the RHS domestic hot water upgrade. Is it that we have not been able to produce enough hot water that we needed over a period of time, Dr. Kelly, or?
And I'll have to refer that question to Carl Svensson, but I'll get you an answer and report back on that.
Okay. And I'll show my lack of knowledge too. What's a Tritium N4 software upgrade?
So this is the software program that we use to control our HVAC systems remotely, so that we can adjust temperatures, and that software needs to be upgraded. And this includes a software package for each of the buildings. So we would update the whole program so that we could better control those systems and have more specific controls.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Are we still with Fred, or we not yet?
I think Fred's not back yet, no.
Okay. Any other, Stacy, any questions?
No, and I apologize. I called Fred to see if he had questions because of audio, and I guess Danielle is trying to help him out. But he said he does not have questions on ESSER3.
Do you have any yourself?
No, it's self-explanatory, thank you.
Susan?
No, I do not, thank you.
Anthony?
No, I do not.
Okay. I just have one question. The dumb waiter, where are they going to put that? Does anybody have any idea?
That I don't know. That's another question that I can ask Carl. I know that he has made plans and mapped it out. I actually feel like there's been a plan for a while, but
Okay.
just hasn't been
It
implemented.
has. There's been a plan for that for years, never came about.
Better late than never.
I know, well, we didn't have any money.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I think at this point, if there are no other questions for the ESSER 2, ESSER 3 grants, what I would like to do is, if anybody has any questions at all about the budget, because we did get a revised from Matt, and I'm sorry, I should have introduced as Matt Cruz, our CFO, that put this budget together with Dr. Kelly, to thank them for what they've done. Any questions at all, Carol, that you would like to ask on the budget?
You know, whatever we had, has been answered in the past when we've been going over it. And I'm amazed that they have done such a great job, and we are so lucky to be in the circumstances that we're in now. When I look at the number of employees that we have, you know, approximately 1,300 employees, very, very difficult to get everything done in a timely and correct manner, and I think they've done a terrific job. I thank Matt for that and his staff, Dr. Kelly, and all the people in the main office for being there and making sure everything is done correctly. Thank you.
I don't see that we still have Fred yet, or do we?
We do not. What would you like me to ask him?
No, I just want to know if he had any
Because he can't hear any of the meeting.
I just want to know if he had any questions, Stacy.
And do you have any questions still?
No, everything seems basically self-explanatory.
He's saying everything seems self-explanatory.
Okay. All right, Stacy, any questions from yourself?
No, thank you.
Susan?
Stacy, on the top, there's the 2 buttons and then there's a little.
Susan, can you hear me?
Oh, now I can. You
Right,
weren't
do you
there
have
a
any
minute ago.
questions
I
for
do not have any questions, thank you.
Anthony, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. I just have a couple of them, that's all. Just a couple, Diane, really. I noticed we budgeted money for another secretary for your office. Are you intending on hiring somebody?
Yeah, and that's not an additional, is that the
The LE.
business office?
Well, you're the secretary with Ellie.
Yes, we intend to replace Ellie, and that job is actually out to bid within the union right now.
And my only other question, and it's probably something I should have known.
Volume is low, okay. Well, how do I read?
All right, the ELT schools. I just went through the last 3 years just to compare their payroll. When the budgets was built, was there 18% built into their salaries, or is that above and beyond?
So the 18% differential from the ELT schools was never built into our regular budget. That always came from the ELT grant.
Okay, so
So
what?
their percent, I mean, we call it 18%. I think it changed over the years, but that money was never built into our regular budget.
Okay, so those salaries were what they were then.
That's right.
And my last question, promise, is that I noticed that the Whalen had 2 secretaries, but I only saw one name. And it was on page 21, and I didn't quite understand it. I mean, I'm not questioning it, I just didn't see a second name towards it.
They don't have 2 secretaries.
Over here, see the amount? See, I don't know where the one
Oh,
says.
that's definitely not.
Okay, so that's it. Okay.
There's only one.
All right, so we just have to fix that, the Whalen secretary, just 1 instead of 2. Okay, that answers
Okay.
that question. I am good. All right, at this point, if there are no other questions, I would like to make a recommendation.
Stacy does have her hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Stacy.
You said something.
Diane, just to go back to Ellie's position, I thought, and I know this was a while ago, so I could be wrong, but I thought Robin was overlapping to take over that position.
Robin actually took Elise's position when she retired. Elise Ferraro.
Okay, I thought the position was not going to be replenished, but then again, I'm wrong.
There was a time when there were 4 secretarial positions in the superintendent's office. And we did find that we could right-size that down to 3 positions. And we've maintained the 3 positions. Ellie has been out since COVID hit, and now has retired, and so we are going to seek to fill her position. So although we've not seen her around in a while, her position was still there and she was still in it until recently.
Thank you.
And they gotta fix this health aid thing.
Yes,
It's
I know.
probably
That's
0.
fine. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so if there are no other questions at this time, that the chairman of the subcommittee would like to make a recommendation to the committee, to the subcommittee, that we accept the budget to be voted on and then sent to the full school committee for a vote on Tuesday.
I'll be happy to make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I just need a second.
Second?
Okay, Danielle, roll call, please.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes?
Ms. Ty?
Yes?
Mr.
Did
Sinella?
you ask the question about,
Fred Zanella said yes.
Okay.
did you ask about Robin?
Yes, I did.
So at that time, it will be on the agenda for Tuesday to be voted on by the entire school committee. Are there any other questions for Dr. Kelly while we're here?
None for me, thank you.
Anybody else?
Excellent job on the part of everyone. A lot of hard work and went into building this budget.
All right, at this point, if there are no other questions, I'd like to close the meeting at 9:35. And we'll see everybody on Tuesday. Thank you for
So
attending.
moved, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You need a roll call.
Need-
Roll call.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes?
Ms. Ty?
Yes,
Mr. Sinella?
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody, for your attendance.
thank you. And thank you for your service.